I now hand the conference over to Mr. Archit Joshi from Dolat Capital. Thank you, and over to you, Mr. Joshi.
Thanks, Neeraj, and good evening, one and all. On behalf of Dolat Capital, I would like to welcome all the participants for the Q3 FY21 conference call of Deepak Fertilizer and Petrochemicals Corporation. We have with us today Mr. Shailesh Mehta, Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. Amitabh Bhargava, President and Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Mahesh Giridhar, President of Crop Nutrition, Mr. Suparas Jain, VP of Corporate Finance, Mr. Devashish Kedia, GM Corporate Finance, and Mr. Deepak Balwani, Head of IR. Thanks a lot, gentlemen, for giving us this opportunity to hold this call. Without further ado, I would like to hand over the floor to Mr. Shailesh Mehta for his opening remarks, post which we can have the floor open for a Q&A round. Thanks, and over to you, sir.
Thank you. You can hear my voice clearly, right?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, a very good afternoon to all of you. I hope you all and your family are safe and healthy. I am hoping that in the next few months we all will get our vaccines, and so we will be able to meet each other in person. I'm looking forward to that pleasure. I also take the pleasure of welcoming you all for the Q3 and 9-month FY21 earnings call of DFPCL. I hope you all have had the chance to look at the consolidated financial statements and the results presented, which have been uploaded in the exchanges. So I'm extremely pleased to share with you that we have achieved possibly the highest ever in Deepak Fertilizer history, our 9-month performance, despite various challenges imposed by COVID. Very broadly speaking, if I give you the headlines, at the consolidated levels for the 9 months, there has been a sustained transformative shift. So our operating EBITDA has virtually doubled quarter on quarter or even year on year. Net profit grew from 30 crores to 89 crores for the quarter on quarter and 67 crores to 291 crores for the 9 months. Margins also grew from 2.6% to around 6% quarter on quarter, and for 9 months from 1.9% to around 6.8%. And 9 months we have crossed the top line of 4,000 crores already. Now, if I look at it in terms of what are the undercurrent aspects that have led to this positive change, and let me share with you at a very broad level few macro aspects and few micro aspects that have helped. So at the macro level, as we see it, all three of our sectors now seem to be beautifully aligned with the country's growth story and are getting a lot of tailwind, which is certainly a good help at the macro level. So our fertilizer business is well aligned with the mid-income group, growth in fruits and vegetables, horticulture, crop requirements. Our industrial chemicals are very well aligned with the country's pharmaceutical sectors and fine chemical sector, and now of course the hygiene needs for hand sanitizers and like. And our mining chemicals are beautifully aligned with the country's need for power, for which it needs coal, or the country's need for cement, for which it needs to pour its limestone, or infrastructure for roads and the like. So one key thing that we are seeing is at the macro level, Deepak Fertilizer's businesses have beautifully aligned with the fundamental country's growth story. Second that happened at the macro level was that it was peculiar, but the rains were good. Peculiar in the sense that initially during Kharif there was an impact, but then, for the Rabi, it is a positive note. The third aspect at the macro level that we are seeing is that with some bit of the China shift some bit of push towards Atmanirbhar, a huge support in the budget for the agriculture sector. All of it has been positive for us at the macro level. And going forward also, the reforms that we have seen in terms of commercial mining, the reforms that we feel are around the corner in terms of agriculture fertilizer sector of direct benefit transfer to the farmers, and the drive and push for doubling the farmer income and the steps in those directions which have been taken and which we see around the corner, all of it at the macro level are going to be supporting the businesses that we are in. Now at the micro level, at Deepak Fertilizer level, one aspect that has certainly helped is that the capacities that we have put up in the last, I would say, 3 to 4 years, whether it is the NPK fertilizer or the acids, now all of them are firing away. All of them are, going strong. Dahej has also performed very well, and that has also contributed to this kind of a positive trend. The second at the micro level, and which is the most critical one, is that our strategic drive from customer to consumer and climbing the value chain from product to solutions, that focus is really bearing fruits. Whether it is for the fertilizer business, where we have made a major shift in our thinking process, in our marketing efforts, in our reach, where instead of focusing on the products, we have started focusing on a crop-specific strategy. And similarly for our TAN project, instead of just focusing on our customers, the industrial explosives firms, we have now begun a very strong focus at the mine level itself. So this strategic drive is certainly something that has, very positively helped. And the third and the most important aspect is that we have taken up a very strong drive on cost efficiencies, systems controls, digitalization, and each of those are now reflecting into much better tracking, much better cost optimization. Broadly, I might share that in the quarter that went, cement infrastructure, which is a support to the TAN business, did not reach its pre-COVID levels, and so that is something that we are now looking forward to as gradually they come out of it, and that would have a positive impact for TAN even further going forward. As far as our IPA goes for the hand sanitizer business, we did see a huge upswing in the first quarter, and since then it has mellowed down, and today IPA is roughly around 13.5% in our gross contributions. Yet it is holding. It is not somewhere what it was a year and a half back with the Chinese dumping. So today, the situation is somewhat better, but of course, Q1 was bonanza, which has mellowed down. So as we go forward, we do see that the fundamentals as far as fertilizer, food, industrial chemicals with health sector, fine chemicals, the mining activities, the Atmanirbhar drive, and above all, the still certain extra capacities that we have, all of it is going to be fundamentally giving us a very positive traction even going forward. So with these opening remarks, I would now hand you over to Samita Bhargava, our CFO, President Finance, for a detailed financial overview and insights in the operational performance, and also then address queries if you have any. Amitabh?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mehta. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining the Deepak Fertilizer and Petrochemicals conference call to discuss the Q3 FY21 results. Our Q3 and 9-month financial performance clearly demonstrates the depth of our core business model and product diversity, leading us to a best ever performance even during challenging times. We are confident of maintaining this growth momentum, as Chairman mentioned earlier. Certain fundamentals are certainly now very clear and very clearly in place. The strong financials were backed by remarkable performance by all the three key sectors, strong demand for our products and better capacity utilizations. All the efforts that we had laid in last few quarters on debt reduction, cost optimization and efficiency measures through transformative initiatives have started bearing fruits. During Q3 FY21, we reported total operating revenue growth of 29% YOY to rupees 1,447 crores. Operating EBITDA increased by about 100% YOY to rupees 217 crores. Operating margins increased to 15% in Q3 FY21 as compared to 9.7% in Q3 FY20. Net profit increased by 3 times YOY to rupees 89 crores in Q3 FY21. Finance costs reduced by nearly 29% YOY in Q3 FY21. We achieved reduced finance costs by putting significant efforts towards improving collections and better working capital management, thereby reducing the short-term borrowings. In chemical segment, manufactured chemical business reported revenue of rupees 685 crores in Q3 FY21. Manufactured IPA revenues increased by 78% YOY to rupees 131 crores in Q3 FY21. IPA demand remained robust in Q3 and manufacturing sales volume increased by nearly 20% YOY. Softening in IPA prices are being witnessed, as Chairman also mentioned. Manufactured acid sales revenue increased by nearly 16% YOY in Q3 FY21. Robust performance in acids business was mainly driven by strong demand and result in better realizations. Greenfield nitric acid plant at Dahej delivered an outstanding quarter with over 100% capacity utilization in concentrated nitric acid and nearly 95% in the dilute nitric acid segment. After facing severe challenges in the last 2 quarters due to COVID, our TAN showed significant recovery in line with the opening up of the consumer industries. TAN sales increased by 14% YOY in Q3 FY21. Strong demand of TAN products experienced both QOQ and YOY growth, driven by improvement in the end user sector. Pricing improved significantly, aided by the demand supply issues in the market, particularly for HTAN and our AN melt. Although demand for LDAN increased compared to Q2 and Q1 FY21, weak performance of infrastructure, cement and steel related sectors has resulted in lower than expected volumes, as many of the cement plants are still sort of operating at below pre-COVID levels of capacity utilization. Chemical trading business it registered 110 crores of revenue in Q3 FY21, up about 11% YOY. Fertilizer segment continued its strong performance for 5th consecutive quarter, led by higher sales volume, supported by good rains in the core command area and demand for recently launched Superfast Bensulf. Overall, margins improved significantly due to higher proportion of differentiated SmartTech NPK in the product mix. Manufactured fertilizers reported revenue increase of 39% YOY to rupees 562 crores in Q3 FY21. Nitrophosphate NP sales volumes in Q3 increased by 13.6% YOY and NPK by nearly 52% YOY. Fertilizer trading business increased by 28% YOY to rupees 85 crores in Q3 of FY21. We remain confident. As Chairman mentioned, both the macro and micro factors are helping us in that direction, and we remain confident of continuing our growth trajectory while extending full support to our customers, suppliers, and other valued stakeholders in these testing times. With this, we would be happy to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question, you may press star and 1 on your touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Anyone who wishes to ask a question, you may press star and 1. The first question is from the line of Lokesh Manik from Vallum Capital Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. Couple of questions from my end. One is on the nitric acid side. If I see your realization has shot up by about 20% QOQ and YOY from about 20,000 metric ton to 25,000. So is this temporary in nature or due to a demand-supply mismatch, or do you expect it to continue going forward?
So one is definitely there is a strong demand we are seeing, and to the extent that we sell a part of our products in the spot market, that has helped realize better prices. But actually, on the long-term end, some of the contracts that have come up for revision, we also have negotiated price increase in those contracts. So a part of it, I would say, is sustainable, and remaining it depends on the spot market. But we are seeing a very strong demand in nitric acid sector. So we are hopeful that these margins, certain margins, will sustain.
Okay. And the second question was on the projects, the CAPEX. So in your presentation, it was mentioned about expansion of IPA and TAN. So is that back on the table? If I understand, it was put on hold before. So if that is back on the table, and if you can share what would be a timeline tentatively, by when can you commission it? And second was the ammonia project. If you can provide a status update on that.
Yeah. So as far as TAN project is concerned, I don't think at any stage we said that it is on hold.
Okay.
What TAN project, we've been in the process of getting all the required approvals, environmental approvals and other regulatory approvals. There is some redevelopment activity that is required before you start investing on the ground. So that process is on, and therefore the timing of that, let's say the CAPEX construction and the rest of procurement would depend on that. We are hopeful that in next say 2 quarters should be in a position to get most of the approvals. But like I said, it depends. The CAPEX would depend on on all the regulatory approvals that we get. As far as IPA is concerned, again we are watching the environment and the situation in terms of the kind of IPA prices, because IPA prices have gone through significant volatility.
Right.
Likewise, the raw material prices, whether it is RGP or acetone, have also not RGP so much, but acetone has seen significant volatility. So for us, before we make up our mind on whether we go ahead or not, we want to sort of wait for the equilibrium to establish in some sense, because there are too many factors right now sort of moving and shaking. So from that perspective, IPA, for the time being, we are waiting and watching. Ammonia project, we have got our consent to establish, which means we can start the construction now. The land acquisition is behind us. We've acquired all the land. We are just sort of in the final phases of negotiating our contracts, and we would then resume the progress of ammonia project.
Okay. But any timeline as to when can you expect? Maybe 23? Would that be?
Yes, 23 first quarter calendar year is when we expect that we would be in a position to commission the plant.
For ammonia and TAN?
Ammonia. TAN is, let's say, anywhere between 26 to 30 months from the day we start construction.
Okay. So that's it from my side. I'll come back for more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Deepak Poddar from Sapphire Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity. So, as you spoke about the momentum in the growth trajectory as well as the future fundamental all are in place. So any sort of outlook that you want to share for next year as a policy?
I didn't get your question. Is it specific to a product that you are asking, or you are saying in general outlook?
In general.
See, first of all, you would appreciate that some of our sectors are cyclical in nature, and raw material does play an important role in terms of margin. So to that extent, giving a prognosis or an estimation on numbers is something that we would want to stay out of. The point that the chairman also mentioned earlier, which is the macro and micro factors. So you need to, and we need to sort of concentrate or focus on some of those aspects. And there I would say, if you look at product by product, in nitric acid, we are seeing significant demand coming from downstream sectors. While this year, so far, I would say our capacity utilization, because of Q1 and Q2 issues that we face on the production side, overall capacity utilizations have been in the range of 65%. So we have, I would say, a significant sort of operating leverage sitting there. It's just a question of having the production streamlined, and that itself would give us the volumes because the demand is not an issue. Likewise, in IPA, again, we are as a country, we are a net importer, and despite we having capacities coming from some of the other players, we remain and we continue to remain an importer. So demand is not an issue. We have to see what the price is, how IPA and RGP prices behave, and this is again a typical sector where it's very difficult to predict. But the business does feel that there is still some steam left in IPA prices for a period. Fundamentally, if you look at TAN, again, TAN is this year the capacity utilization in TAN also, because of what we faced in Q1 and Q2, have been more in the range of 80%, 81%. So there is, and TAN demand is not a question mark at all. I mean, we are again a net importer. In fact, with certain restriction on import, we have seen the demand supply situation again sort of more in favor of the supply side. So we've got good realizations, and given that capacity utilizations can be further improved. I mean, we are nowhere close to what we achieved in FY19, for example. We see that there is good headroom left there in terms of further sort of getting the volumes and the margins in TAN business. Fertilizer is where we are clearly, despite all the challenges, we are still better, significantly better than last year. But even with that, we are looking at capacity utilizations of about 73, 74% that we have got utilized in this year 9 months. So which means that again, and given that farmers have accepted our products, and we are coming up with new variants, we are quite confident that this additional sort of operating leverage sitting in our capacities, particularly in NPK trains, we would be able to utilize them well. So if you look at all of the fundamentals on the demand side and the fact that we are still sitting on capacities, unutilized capacity, we do see a good sort of traction going forward.
Oh, that's quite an elaborate explanation. Thank you so much, sir. And so just last thing, when you're talking about growth, maintaining the growth momentum, are we talking about like last 2-3 quarters we have been maintaining about 20-25% kind of a revenue growth on a YOY basis? So is that the momentum you're talking about?
So I have given you a sense on the capacities and unutilized capacities. So as far as capacity utilization is concerned, like I said, demand is not a constraint, and once the pandemic is behind us, we don't see challenges in utilizing our capacity. What happens to prices is something that we need to watch out for, and to that extent, I wouldn't want to predict. That said, I think you are aware that there is general inflationary trend that we are seeing in all commodities. And then the question is, what happens to relative prices of finished goods and raw material? That would also, in a way, decide what kind of margins we are able to secure in coming quarters. But we are seeing, like, demand is not a challenge. Capacity utilization is something that we are quite confident that today we are underutilized. We would utilize them better.
Fair enough. Understood. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nishit Shah from Aequitas Investments. Please go ahead.
Good evening, sir, and congratulations on great numbers. Sir, I wanted to understand on subsidy front, how much is outstanding?
So there is, by December end, 460 crore. But what I can confirm to you that in month of January itself, we have received roughly about 210 odd crores. So this number would have come down. But December end number is 460 crores.
Okay. And with the higher budgetary allocation, do you feel that the pending subsidies, so basically there would be no pending subsidies for this year end?
That's our estimation as well, but let's see.
Okay. Sir, this phosphoric and ammonia prices have been on a rising trend. So can you give me the current prices? And also I wanted to understand, will we be able to pass on these prices to the consumers?
So phosphoric prices have gone up by about $100. And while ammonia prices today we are still looking at about $270 to $280 CFR prices. Now, again, it's very difficult to answer that question. We'll have to see how other players in the market also react to this price increase. But where we are confident is that we have in last several quarters the demonstration that we have done at the farm level, and the number of farmers who have now tested our differentiated product, and the fact that we have compared to the competition, our variants, Smart Tech variants, are commanding premium. That gives us a confidence that farmers would be willing to pay for that differentiation, and that gives us a better ability to pass on the price. But a lot also depends on how the market and rest of the players also react to it.
Sir, so is the channel inventory normalized by now, or is it at a lower level?
Mahesh, would you like to take this question?
Yeah, thank you very much, Amitabh. So the channel inventory is at a normalized level because channel inventory started coming down from Kharif onward. because there were some supply challenges in the first half, and demand this year, the consumption this year in first half was about 40% more than last year. So that has depleted the inventory, and inventory is quite normal now.
Okay. Sir, can you give me breakup of EBIT for TAN and nitric acid?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Sir, I want EBIT of TAN and nitric acid separately. Is that possible?
So one is we report at Deepak standalone, we report EBIT, which has both IPA and acid numbers. And at the console level, we report the chemical segment, which has TAN, IPA, and acid. So as such, we don't sort of report a split between IPA and the acids.
Okay, sir. Sir, so our realizations for the TAN and nitric acids have gone up. Some input cost would have also gone up. So has EBITDA margins for these per ton basis have gone up than what we were experiencing in the past? Those have been stable.
So if you see the overall EBIT numbers have gone up for chemical segment, and TAN was a significant contributor to that. We don't, like I said, we don't report EBITDA product-wise because some of our costs are also common, and to that extent they appear below the segment EBIT numbers. So it's not. I don't think it's sort of, one is we don't report it, and it's I wouldn't want to sort of break up the costs which are below our segment EBIT into respective sort of products.
Okay. Sir, now coming to our debt, so how much have we reduced debt, gross and net, in this quarter?
This quarter debt, I would say roughly about 50 odd crores net debt reduction. So by and large, it has remained flat. So I think September end we were roughly about 2,050 odd crores, and we are now down to 2,000 crores.
2,000 crores. Sir, and the interest cost has been stable quarter on quarter. So do we see that reducing going forward?
But we have in fact reduced the interest cost. What you're saying is quarter on quarter there's been a stability. Yes, I think fundamentally, like I said, we have by better working capital management and collections, we have significantly reduced our short-term debt.
Yes.
Long-term debt is most of it is actually there for the earlier capex that we had done, or in fact there is out of 2,000 crore, nearly 870 odd crore debt is on account of ammonia project. So as far as that is concerned, that would long-term debt will remain. The normal amortization would apply there. While we are also looking at reducing some of that long-term debt interest rates, but given that we have significantly achieved efficiency on the short end, interest on short end is unlikely to go further. But on long end, we'll see what better efficiencies we can bring in. So I would say I think this level of interest should sustain.
Okay. And so my last question, any direct impact on us from this budget?
There is no direct impact. I mean, there are cascading impact in terms of what happens to infrastructure sector or the expected reforms in the fertilizer sector that Chairman earlier spoke about. But if your question is more around any change of duty, etc., no, I think there is no impact.
There was some change in ammonium nitrate duty. Will that affect us?
No, the net effect there is nil, because I think the two components, it's sort of a new component has been introduced where a part of, I would say, the import duty has got earlier 7.5%, it's down to 2.5%, but we now have 5% agriculture and infrastructure sets. So net effect is zero.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Shah. I'll request you to come back in the question queue for a follow-up question. The next question is from the line of Sachin Kasera from Swan Investments. Please go ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir, and congrats for a good set of numbers. I had 2-3 questions. One was follow-up on this debt part. So you mentioned that the current debt is around 2,000 crores, of which 800 crores is for ammonia. So how do we see the overall debt number maybe in the next 1 to 2 years? You think it will remain at this level, or you think we can bring it down? That could be one of looking at it. Or are we looking at it more as a debt to EBITDA or debt to equity? If you could just give us your thoughts on how you are looking at this overall debt.
So if you look at consolidated debt, and again that we've not completed the year, so it's difficult to compare debt EBITDA. But if one were to just apply a proportionate increase, we are on a 9-month basis. We are nearly at a debt EBITDA of maybe 2.1, 2.2. Thereabout. As such, the debt, as far as the capex is concerned, to the extent we are going ahead with our ammonia project, it would add the debt in commensurate with the progress that project would make. But as far as the other operating debt is concerned, like I said, on the short term, we have by and large achieved all the efficiencies. So I don't expect that the short-term debt would go significantly down. On the long end of the debt, there would be a normal amortization, so that debt will come down. What is also reflecting in debt is some of the optionally convertible bonds and compulsorily convertible debentures in our books. As and when these convert, because these have long 5 to 6.5 years of investment period. This is the investment done by IFC. To the extent these debt or today what is appearing as debt in the books from accounting purpose, as and when these convert into equity or they exercise the option of converting them into equity, that would also result in better debt EBITDA or debt equity ratio. So in summary, I think the capex debt will go up, at least on ammonia, because that's the project we are clearly going ahead. Then I had mentioned earlier that the timing depends on us getting all the approvals, and the operating debt would get amortized because some of it is for the capex that we have already done, and we are now generating healthy EBITDA from those capacities.
Sure. And so just as a follow-up on that on the ammonia project, so you mentioned that 800 crores is the currently debt we are carrying. How much we have spent totally on the project, and how much more we will need to spend, and what according to you could be tentative timeline by which this project could get completed?
So we have spent nearly 1,500 crores. The numbers in terms of the going forward capex would get frozen with once we finalize our contract, EPC contract, etc. Timing-wise, I've already mentioned that we expect that the project to get completed in the Q1 of FY23, or rather the Q1 of calendar year FY23. So by March, April of 23, we are looking to complete that process.
And so one just last question on the manufacturing side. With the existing capacities, what is the sort of like a peak revenue we can achieve on the manufacturing side, both on fertilizer as and chemicals?
Now that depends on what happens to the prices of each of our finished products, which I just mentioned that look that is in some cases there is a cyclicality. What you need to maybe look at is how much additional volumes can we generate or sell in each of the products, and to that effect, I've mentioned earlier what kind of capacity utilization has happened so far in this 9-month period, and what kind of additional capacities are sitting. Because demand, we don't see a challenge in almost all of our products. So volume is something that you can take a view on. Very difficult for me to give you a view on.
Next year, we could look at very healthy utilization across all products in the manufacturing side, sir?
Yes, that is what we are aiming at.
Sure. Thank you very much and wish you all the best, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Rohit Nagaraj from Sunidhi Securities and Finance Limited. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity and congratulations on the good set of numbers. So the first question is not an exactly question, but the slide on the sales volume this time is missing. Instead of that, we have provided the volume growth on a YOY basis for 9 months and Q3. So if you could provide the sales volume, I think that would be better maybe in the next quarter. So just a suggestion on that front. Secondly, the question is in terms of dilution, what would be the dilution which will happen post our IFC conversion and the bonds which are currently under conversion?
So we have reported earlier to stock exchange as well that IFC's FCCB have a conversion option at 195 rupees a share. The option, at what stage do they exercise? Because it's difficult for me to say what kind of price they would look for above, more than at 195 level before they may exercise that option. But as such, the conversion is at 195 rupees a share, and they have $30 million of FCCB that they have invested. So that's you can do the math and come to the number.
Sure. So that is the only thing which is there in terms of conversion or dilution incrementally, right?
So at Deepak level, yes. The other instruments that they've invested are at the SmartChem level, which is at the subsidiary level.
Right. Thanks. That helps. So in terms of any imports probably getting impacted are existing segments, IPA or any other segment that we have seen in this particular quarter, or is there any benefit because of the overall container situation and the shipping rates going up? So has there been any positive or negative impact on our business during Q3, and how are we expecting the same in Q4? Thank you.
So as far as the container is concerned, the shortage of container has to some extent affected our TAN export. But that again is not a significant volume, and given the domestic demand, it's not as though that product cannot be placed. We can always that product can be sold domestically because export in any case is something that we do to maintain a certain level of market presence and get certain additional margins that we get and then export versus, let's say, domestic HSAN. But today we are seeing a strong demand on AN melt, and therefore even if we are not able to export a TAN, we don't see any significant impact. We marginally export IPA and to an extent the SNA, which is a blend between CNA and DNA. But those are very, very small volumes. But those are, in any case, I think container-wise, the only commodity that gets affected is TAN export. As far as import is concerned, again, most of the import that we have is a bulk. And therefore, to that extent, barring some specialty fertilizers that we trade into, the other import, significant part of our import is in bulk, and therefore doesn't affect us much.
Thanks, sir. So just one last clarification. So I think we had the intention of monetizing the Pune property. So if you could just throw some color on this. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we will wait for the right opportunity. Also, as and when, let's say, our funding requirement also we would be assessing on a real-time basis. So any monetization would be a function of both of these.
Sure. Thanks a lot and best of luck.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Hardik from Prospero Tree Financial Service. Please go ahead.
Hello.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to know what is the dividend distribution policy of the company, and
Well, the board has to decide the dividend based on the profit and the internal requirements. Yes, to some extent, yes, board does want to maintain a certain level of a track record as far as dividends are concerned. But it's entirely a board decision which I wouldn't want to comment on.
okay. And another thing is, why is the employee cost significantly up during this quarter?
So a couple of things. One is there is, given the performance that we are seeing in the business, and we wanted to wait for the third quarter. Based on that, some of the incentives, variable pay, management remuneration, all of that may have to be, as per the company's policy, may have to be on the higher end, and therefore when we stood it up for in this quarter, we have not provided for them in first and second quarter, as the numbers that we are looking at we were not anticipating at that stage, and to that extent, it is all come into third quarter. But one needs to look at last 3 quarters numbers and sort of screw them up on a quarterly basis.
Okay. Thank you. That's it from my side.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Abhilasha Satale from Dalal & Broacha Stock Broking. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to know if you could take us through how IPA realization has moved on quarter basis, and how has been the profitability, because as you said, even raw material prices have also gone up. So I'm not asking for the exact numbers, but if you could just give, whether there is in line with raw material, whether there is an increase or decrease in profitability.
So broadly, and while we don't share the margins that we are making in each of the products, but what I can mention is that immediately after the lockdown in April 2020, the IPA prices shot up from, let's say, about 900 odd levels to 1250 odd levels, went all the way up to 1990 or nearly $1,500. This is IPA CFR India prices. So on an average, quarter one, if you look at all 3 months, the average price was about $1,375 odd dollars per ton, US dollar per ton. That came down to nearly, let's say, 1,100 odd dollars per ton in Q2, and was again marginally up to about $1,140 odd dollars. But month on month, again, there has been fluctuation. So we started Q3 quarter with somewhere around $990, ended the quarter with $1,280 odd dollars. So again, significant sort of change within the quarter itself. In January, we are looking at something like $1,100 to $1,150 kind of numbers, CFR India. As far as RGP is concerned, this is dependent on crude prices. So as such, you have seen upsurge in crude prices. So the prices that we had in Q1 are definitely, those prices have moved up on the RGP front. We did a part of our volume. We had even done some bit of hedging on those prices. We have done only to the extent of a part of our raw material prices. So that would also show a final impact in terms of profitability. But like I said, prices are down from 1,375 down to about 1,100, while the crude prices have gone up. That's something that you would be aware in terms of what happened to Brent prices.
Okay. Sir, could you just tell me what was the IPA realization in Q3 FY20?
You're talking about total
year-on-year basis. If you could just tell me what was the IPA price in Q3 FY20 last year during the same quarter.
You can see the NSPs on our website. We report NSPs on our products.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Tejas Shah from Unique Stock Broking. Please go ahead. Tejas Shah, may I request you to unmute your line from your side and go ahead with your question? Tejas Shah, we are unable to hear you. May I request you to unmute your line from your side and go ahead with your question? Tejas Shah, can you hear us? Due to no response, we move on to the next participant. The next question is from the line of Lokesh Manik from Vallum Capital Advisors. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks again. Coming to the fertilizer capacity, we have installed at 9 lakh ton. We are operating at about 70% plus. What is the maximum can we go to, and what are the challenges we are facing to go up to that capacity? If you can share a little bit on that.
So practically, the capacity utilization could be closer to 100%. And some of the fertilizer plants, if you see in urea, for example, work at more than 100% nameplate capacity. But it would be fair to say we can touch 100% capacity. There is, to the extent there is a product changeover because we produce different grades. There is some bit of a loss that can happen, capacity utilization loss. But then I would assume that, and I can confirm that later. But Deepak can confirm later. But even with that, we should be in a position to touch anywhere between 95 to 100% utilization. What is stopping it? Actually, honestly, there's nothing that is coming in the way. There is, as you know, when the pandemic started in Q1, we were running one train. We had planned for one train. We saw a very strong demand coming from the market, particularly the kind of response that we saw on our Smart Tech product. So that gives us the confidence that today, if we were to, on a full year basis, if we were to run the plant at 100%, a market will absorb the product. If you see Q3 itself, we've run a total capacity utilization is nearly
97, I think.
70%. Overall, YTD is 74, but Q3 is 89%. And to that extent, it's those challenges we saw in the pandemic period on evacuation and on the raw material side, certain maintenance and therefore forced breakdown. Given that today, given the response that we have received on our NPK Smart Tech product, we don't see much challenge in utilizing our capacities to the full extent.
Okay. So there's no technical issue as such which is preventing you from ramping up. I mean, we had some teething problems 2-3 quarters back when the NPK had just come on line, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, at that time there was some raw material related challenges which were there, which I think were felt by many other players, because phosphoric acid the suppliers are limited and a few.
Right.
To the extent we got affected, others were affected as well. But a lot has changed on the phosphoric acid supply side since then. So we don't see any of those challenges now.
Okay. And the second question is on the non-core assets. So if you can provide any update on the divestment of the Australian subsidiary. There was some talk going on that we were planning to divest our stake in that subsidiary out there, in one of the subsidiaries out there, for raising funds. So any update on that?
So no update. As and when we reach a level which we need to report to the stock exchange and the market, we shall come back.
Okay. And on the real estate part, again we are still waiting and watching mode.
Yes.
Okay. That's it from my side, Amitabh. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lokesh.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Sachin Kasera from Swan Investment Managers. Please go ahead.
The press release we have mentioned that one of the reasons for margin improvement fertilizer is the higher share of Smartech in the portfolio. So could you give us some sense, what percentage of our revenue volumes are coming from Smartech? And secondly, I know that you don't specifically mention a product, but if you could give some sense, what is the type of profitability? Is it like significantly better when you sell 1 ton of Smartech versus the normal?
So in Q3, we have sold bulk fertilizers, that is our ANP and NPK Smartech, about 173,000 tons. Out of that, 108,000 tons were Smartech, and about 65,000 tons was our nitrophosphate. And on full year, or rather 9-month basis, we've sold 504,000 tons, out of which Smartech was 320,000, and ANP was 81,000. Now 320 is as compared to 143 in FY20 9 months. So nearly 224% of, or it's kind of more than doubled in terms of volumes.
Could you just comment something about the profitability in Smartech vis-a-vis the normal fertilizers?
Normal fertilizer in the sense,
bulk versus Smartech, what is the difference? If you could give us some sense on the profitability.
Oh yeah, so as such, we were earlier selling the NPK plain product, and assuming again, because that we have almost discontinued that product, so I can't compare the prices, but assuming that the competition or the nearest competition is a proxy to the price that we would have sold our NPK at. Today, Smartech is getting anywhere between 8 to 10% price premium over the competing sort of grades, which represent what we would have sold as NPK plain. Mahesh, would you want to add to that, or do you think that that's a fair representation of?
No, so I think, Amitabh, just I will add, the first part of the question also was that what is the percentage of Smartech? So I think we are not producing non-Smartech at all in our NPK 2 line trains anymore. So nitrophosphate continues to be nitrophosphate, and rest of the NPK is now 100%, so we are no more producing any commodity product. Both these, the 4 grades we have under Smartech now, all these grades are providing significant value proposition to the farmers. I mean, we have conducted about 25,000 field demonstrations by now in the last 3 years, and we have data of about 2,000 field demonstration, whereby about 9 to 12% yield increase is happening. That is about 3,500 rupees to 5,000 rupees per acre is the benefit. So when we are creating additional value, we are able to capture part of that value and hence improve our premium. Premium depends on different crop geography size. So I think the key part here is that there is definitely better premium than what we would have been doing as a commodity player.
Sure. And my second question is regarding the return ratios. If we compare our return ratios with the leading peers, either both on the fertilizer as well as the chemical side, today we are at much lower the curve with them. Part of it could be because of these investments in ammonia and certain projects are not getting any returns. But if you give us your thesis, how do we look at the return ratio, and is that something which is very closely monitored? Say more from a medium term, say a 3 to 4 years perspective, where would you like your return ratios to be, say ROCs and ROEs?
So one is at this stage, if you look at fertilizer, for example, since we were so far, our capacity utilizations were last year, for example, they were 54% or thereabouts. We have now moved up to 73, 74%. Now, till you attain certain level of capacity utilization, which at least industry is attaining, your return on capital employed, return on equity, at least on that segment, would obviously look inferior. Also, since we've completely changed our strategy in the market from being an NPK plain or a commodity product to specialty product now, or a differentiated product now. The realizations and therefore margins, and whether you look at it EBIT or EBITDA level, have significantly moved up. So therefore, again, we were earlier, the numbers were not representative of the kind of return on capital employed that we needed to generate on that. But going forward, with the capacity utilization and to some extent increasing the premium, if there is still a value that is there, which Mahesh was just mentioning, that anywhere between 9 to 12% kind of yield improvement. Now, we'll have to see how we go up in terms of the return on capital employed. But I think the other, which is the chemical segment, we are both on TAN, acid, and IPA. It's difficult to have a like-to-like comparison in terms of return on capital employed, because some of the chemical companies are, for us, IPA and acid are more a part of, let's say, a TAN is more of a specialty chemical or comparable to that, while IPA and acid being the input for specialty chemical, the margins there cannot be compared with specialty chemicals. So we are essentially looking at three different segments within our portfolio. One is a basic chemical, the other is specialty chemical, and the third one is fertilizer. And therefore, a comparison that when we look at internally, we look at comparison vis-a-vis these sectors. And at times it's difficult to get the data, but it's needless to say that we are the idea overall on a consolidated basis. If you were to remove the capex that we are doing, if we could remove that capital employed, then we are certainly looking at kind of high teens return on capital employed, and therefore accordingly, depending on the leverage, the return on the equity should also